Hello, my name is Charlie Braxton, and you're now rocking with Speak Your Peace TV.
Well, dear got your career for only 95%. Well, that leaves enough for fronts like KP suits and pay the rent. Sing the blues and pay.
I'm originally from Macomb, Mississippi, which is about 82 miles south of Jackson. Okay, I was born in 1961, which means that I grew up in came of age in the late 60s, early 70s. Back then, we just in the 70s, we just integrated. So there was a lot of racial tension. I wouldn't say that it was like racial riots like the people before us, the class just came before us, or the couple of classes before us. Right. But there was tension. It wasn't like we hung out with each other. We had separate proms, dude. We even had separate. They had the class president was a white class, the person whom they assumed is the president of the senior class, and Michelle Hodges was ours. I think Keith McDaniels was his name on the white side. So. Well, I mean, if you go to Macomb, and even now, and you go to the black community, the traditional black community, and you go to the traditional white community, it's two different. It's like night and day, dude.
Right. Kind of like Jackson and Madison.
Precisely. So, separate but equal. Separate, yeah. Equal, not necessarily. Economically speaking, no. You have the right to go wherever you want to go in Macomb and live wherever you want to live. But you don't, without money, you can't. And jobs are hard for black people to get decent jobs. Most people who have, education and whatnot, they leave.
Right. They go somewhere else.
Yeah, they go somewhere else. I mean, I don't live there now. So, you know. I was always interested in music. I always loved music. I grew up in uh, Macomb, and I grew up next door to a juke joint. The place was called Miss Annie's Cafe. I have a poem in my first book called "Juking at Miss Annie's Cafe," and so I grew up listening to blues and a lot of funk records when I, started buying my own records.
Right.
And also across the street there was a place called Lawson's Drive-In, and it was a white establishment where they had a jukebox. And it was a rather loud jukebox. So sometimes during the day, particularly on a Saturday or a Sunday, people would put records in so I could hear rock records.
Right.
So it kind of gave me this cross section of music.
You heard a plethora of music
To listen to, right? And then in Macomb for the longest of time we didn't have a real powerful radio, so you had to listen to the local radio station that played a lot of pop records. And it wasn't until later on when my mother bought a better stereo that we were able to pick up New Orleans WYLD, and
that was a big station back then.
yes, that was a huge station. WXEL out of Slidell was a big station too. I mean, even to this day in Macomb, most black people listen to the station out of either they listen to QUE or they listen to the station out of Baton Rouge, and I forget the call letters for that station. Because like I said, it's been a while since I've been to Macomb.
Right.
My mother and my father divorced when I was 3, so we lived with my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother was a real strong woman. She was born in 1884.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember, we didn't have running water. We were the first people on my block, in Beartown, to have running water.
Really?
And
So you guys were the first ones.
first ones.
What were you doing before that to get water?
We had a well in the back of in our back porch. We had a well.
So y'all would just go in and get the water out the well and then heat it up and then bathe
and drink it. Well, no, we just drink it out the well. It was good and cold.
It would be good and cold.
Uh-huh.
Did y'all use it to bathe as well?
Yeah, we used it to bathe. We heated up to bathe. All of that good stuff.
So,
And on top of that, you know, where the process was, our neighbors could come and in the back porch. We always left the back porch open because it was screened in, and they could come and get well water. I remember that just as clear as day.
did they ever come get the running water from you?
Yep, as soon as we got the running water, the faucet for the outside, people could come and get as much water as they want, and my grandmother never charged them.
She never charged anybody
Never
for the
charged
water.
them. Never.
Oh,
And I mean, that was a lesson that I learned in, life. In life that you have, the community is, you're part of the community and the community is a part of you. And if you don't help each other, you're in trouble.
you're gonna destroy each other.
Yeah. So that's a lesson I've never forgot.
Okay. Okay.
Now I'm seeing all kind of stuff. I mean, it's all kind of some good stuff, some bad stuff. I'm trying to think of some specifics because now you put me on the spot. Like I said, I've written. I remember writing a review for Jay-Z's. The first time I ever wrote something substantial for the source. I wrote a review of Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt, and his publicist called to tell me that they didn't like it, and I wound up arguing with her about it. And I kept telling her, put Jay-Z on the phone. I'm not afraid of him. I'll let him know exactly where I stand. I'm not changing my opinion.
Reasonable Doubt was a good album now.
People think that I don't like the album. I do like the album. There are a couple of songs on the record I didn't like. And
so you was just giving your honest opinion. You liked the record overall. You just didn't like certain aspects of it.
There were 2 records on there I didn't think were decent records, and they really didn't like.
What were those 2 records?
Ain't No Nigga just did not fit sonically on that record. It sounded to me like I need a record for radio. As a matter of fact, Ain't No Nigga was a record that you found on the Nutty Professor soundtrack.
Right. It was one of the biggest videos.
And when you listen to it on the Nutty Professor soundtrack, sonically it fits that soundtrack. It works. But sonically it just did not work on that album. You got all these jazzy records, and then all of a sudden, don't.
Kind of goes to the funk.
It goes to the funk, which is cool. I like funk.
Right.
I know where the record came from. It's a great sample. If you watch Wild Style, it's a great record. That's it. But it just didn't work for that record.
Right.
Your EPMD made a hit out of it. I loved it on EPMD.
Okay. Do you think they thought that you were biased because you gave Outkast and the
Well, that happened a year later. That happened a year later. At that point, I don't think that they knew that I was from. I think once they realized I wasn't from New York. See, had I been from New York, I probably
they'd been went at your head.
Oh well, it's just I think Jay-Z didn't like that. Who is this guy? He's not even from New York. But what people don't understand is people down south, and particularly where I'm from in Mississippi, we listen to everything.
Exactly.
Everything's on the radio.
Exactly.
East Coast is on the radio. West Coast is on the radio. I remember Kevin Powell telling me, he said, "You're not tainted with that whole East Coast West." I said, "No, we listen to everything.
We listen to everything.
I said, I listen to jazz, blues, funk, hip hop, all of it.
Rock, everything.
Everything. And because of that, I'm able to recognize a good record. I believe."
Okay.
Dude, one of the biggest moments, 2 biggest moments of my life, I met a lot of great people because I'm also a published poet. People who are involved in hip-hop may not know that. I'm also a published poet, and I consider myself part of an extension, not necessarily, or influenced by, let me say that I'm heavily influenced by the Black Arts Movement.
Okay.
And I've been blessed to meet a lot of the people who were involved in that Black Arts Movement. I met Gil Scott-Heron when I was in college. As a matter of fact, I read poetry opening up for him for a Black History Month concert at Jackson State. I met Amiri Baraka. As a matter of fact, Amiri Baraka was one of the first people to publish my poetry.
Wow.
And he wrote the introduction to my first book, Ascension from the Ashes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so,
a big name.
Yeah, that's the father of modern African American poetry.
Right, right. He made dope, money, all these different,
Why?
why? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
All these different poems that really, that really resonate in American culture.
That's a very good question, and it's a question that something that I've thought long and hard about. Uh, when you look at, say, for instance, the let's just take the two major strands of hip hop in terms of where it started and the East Coast, West Coast. When you look at this infrastructure of New York, where it started, well, New York had it's the media capital of the world. It's also the headquarters of the music industry. So for an artist, once, and keep in mind now, the majors didn't jump on hip hop initially.
Right.
It was the independents that did it.
Right.
And then once the majors saw the amount of money that the independents were making, they jumped into the bandwagon. And once they did, they were able to take the music from that was started in the Bronx and take it and worldwide.
Right.
Okay, let's look at West Coast. West Coast, same situation. Independents pretty much started making the music, and then once the music started to blow up and explode on the West Coast, there's Capitol Records, there was Priority, there were all these major record companies and major independent record companies who could take it to the next level. Now, let's look at the South. Now, this is my theory about Southern hip hop. When you look at the South, like New York has the 5 boroughs,
Right.
the South has 5 epicenters.
Okay.
Okay, those epicenters are, and I'm going to name them, Miami, Atlanta, Memphis, New Orleans, Houston. Okay, when you look at those 5 epicenters have one thing in common. They all had a musical industry which laid an infrastructure for hip hop prior to hip hop being recorded there. Okay, you look at Miami, you had TK Records. TK Records, and you had a lot of other records, which meant that record companies, smaller record companies. But you had TK Records, which gave you Casey and the Sunshine Band, Gwen McCrae. It gave you...
all of that came out of Miami?
Out of Miami. Gwen McCrae, George McCrae. Okay, Timmy Thomas, Why Can't We Live Together? All of that came out. Blowfly.
Okay, okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
all of that comes out of Miami. All right, let's go to Atlanta. Atlanta, gave us SOS Band, Quasar. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
The Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? They're all kind, and not just that. Because of the success of the SOS Band, Michael Malden wound up becoming an executive. Michael Malden, whom is Jermaine Dupri's father, winds up becoming an executive at Columbia Records.
I did not know that.
You see what I'm saying? So there's infrastructure there. There's studios. There's production companies. There's everything that you need to actually create a record. And not to mention radio. Local radio in both places began to support the music.
Right, right.
All right, let's go to Memphis. We don't even have to talk about Stax Records.
No, we don't even have to talk about
Selecto
You got Isaac Hayes,
Isaac
you got
Hayes,
everybody.
Barcades.
You got Drake Dad.
Yeah, all of
everybody,
that. So there's that structure there. And not to mention, you had a major, and here's another thing. Miami had Rock Bottom and Ace Distributors. Atlanta had Ichiban Independent Distributor.
I remember Ichiban.
Okay, independent, and a label served as and put out a lot of rap records.
Yep.
You know, okay, so that was part of it too. But before that, they were doing blues and jazz and other records. All right, Memphis, Selecto hits. Need I say more?
Right, Selecto hits was going
crazy
hard,
in the 90s. Okay, crazy. All right, let's go to New Orleans. Same situation. You got New Orleans, a plethora of great artists come out of New Orleans. The
Right.
Neville Brothers, the Meters, Chocolate Milk, the Gators, Alan Toussaint, Irma Thomas.
Mm.
On
On and on.
On and on, Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people come out of New Orleans, man.
Yeah, all of that.
And then even with the hip hop, it was like No Limit, man.
No,
At one point, they were putting out more
even
artists.
before No Limit, you had these bounce artists who were coming out of there.
Right,
And then
UNLV.
Yeah, UNLV. You had the what? Buddha, bitch. 3-9 Posse.
Okay.
You know, you had all these great records that were coming out of there. Infrastructure. They had mobile distributors. You see what I'm saying? They had this infrastructure, one stops, all of that set up. All right, you go to Houston. Archie Bell and the Drells come out of Houston. All right, you have the Crusaders coming out of Houston. The entire Lost family coming out of Houston. And they had record companies there. They had studios there.